Hi, my dear friends. Today, I want to tell you a story that can change how you see life. It's not just any story. It's about a poor boy who had nothing, but he made the whole world laugh. His name is Charlie Chaplin. Have you ever felt hopeless? Have you ever cried alone? Have you ever thought that no one cares about you? Charlie felt all of that, and more that he grew up hungry. He didn't have a father. His mother was very sick. He had to fight every day just to survive. But guess what? That same poor boy became one of the most famous people in the world. He didn't need money. He didn't need a strong body. He used one thing only, his dream. This story is full of pain, hope, courage, and success. It's a story that teaches us, even if life is dark, we can still shine like stars. So get ready. I will take you on a journey from the dirty streets of London to the shining lights of Hollywood, from tears to laughter, from silence to applause. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to my channel if you want more amazing stories like this one. Now, let's begin the story of a boy who made the world smile. Part 1. The Hard Childhood of Charlie Chaplin. Charlie Chaplin was born in London in 1889, but his life was not easy at all. From the very beginning, everything was difficult. His father was a singer, but he drank too much. He left the family when Charlie was very young. His mother, Hannah, tried to take care of Charlie and his brother Sidney, but she was very poor. Sometimes there was no food in the house. Sometimes they had to sleep cold and hungry. Charlie was just 5 years old when he first saw a stage. His mother was a singer too, but one day she lost her voice while singing. The crowd became angry. Little Charlie walked onto the stage and tried to make people laugh. And he did. The crowd laughed and clapped. That was Charlie's first moment as a performer. But life got worse. His mother became very sick. She had mental health problems and was sent to a hospital. Charlie and his brother were sent to a workhouse. It was a terrible place for poor children. They had to work hard and live in bad conditions. Charlie missed his mother so much. He felt sad and alone. But inside his heart, there was a light. He loved comedy. He loved to watch people and copy how they walked or talked. He could make others laugh, even when he was sad. He didn't go to school for long. He didn't have new clothes or toys. But he had something more powerful, imagination. Even in the darkest times, Charlie dreamed of something better. He wanted to be on stage. He wanted to make people happy. And slowly, that dream started to grow. Part 2. Charlie's first steps on stage. After many hard years, something good finally happened. Charlie's brother, Sidney, started working with a theater group. He helped Charlie join a young boys' dance group. Charlie was only 10 years old when he began performing on stage. At first, he danced and acted in small roles. He didn't speak much because the shows were usually silent or musical. But people noticed something special about him. He had funny movements, big expressions, and great timing. Even without words, he could make people laugh. Charlie worked very hard. He practiced every day. He watched other actors and learned from them. He was not just trying to act. He was learning how to become a master of comedy. One day, he got a big chance. He joined a famous group called Fred Carno's Company. This group traveled around England and later went to America. Charlie was very excited. It was his first time leaving his country. He was nervous, but also full of hope. On the stage, Charlie played funny characters. He would fall down, make silly faces, or act like a drunk man. The audience laughed loudly. They loved him. But off the stage, Charlie was quiet and serious. He read books, studied people, and kept thinking about how to improve his art. He believed comedy was not just for fun. It was a way to show truth and feelings. When the company went to America, many people saw Charlie perform. One of them worked for a movie studio. He invited Charlie to try acting in silent films. At first, Charlie didn't know much about movies, but he said yes. He wanted to try something new. So, Charlie Chaplin, the poor boy from London, entered the world of movies. He didn't know it yet, but this step would change his life and the world forever. He was ready for something bigger than the stage. He was ready for the big screen. Part 3: A New Life in America and Silent Movies. When Charlie Chaplin arrived in America, everything felt new. The streets were wide. The buildings were tall. The people moved fast. But Charlie didn't come to be a tourist. He came with a dream to become a star. In 1913, a film company called Keystone Studios gave Charlie his first movie job. At first, it was difficult. Making movies was different from theater. There were no live audiences. There was no talking. Everything had to be big and clear, just actions and expressions. Charlie didn't like the first few films he made. He thought they were too fast and silly. But he didn't give up. He watched the other actors. He learned how the camera worked. Then he started adding his own ideas. One day, he put on a small mustache, a bowler hat, and big shoes. He wore a tight coat and carried a little cane. He walked in a funny way. That was the moment he created his most famous character, the Tramp. People loved the Tramp. He was poor but proud, funny but kind. He got into trouble, but he always tried to do the right thing. The Tramp became a symbol of hope for many people, especially during hard times. Charlie became very popular. Movie after movie, he made people laugh. But his comedy was different. It had heart. It had emotion. Sometimes, people laughed and cried at the same time. The film studios noticed his talent. They gave him more money and more freedom. Soon, Charlie started directing his own films. He didn't just act. He wrote, directed, and sometimes even composed the music. His movies were silent, but they spoke to everyone. You didn't need to understand English. You only needed to feel. Charlie said, "Action is more powerful than words." And he proved it with every movie. This poor boy from London had now become one of the biggest stars in America. But this was only the beginning. The best was yet to come. Part 4: The Little Tramp, a global icon. Charlie Chaplin's most famous character was called the Tramp, a small man with a big heart. He wore old clothes, walked in a funny way, and carried a small cane. But behind his silly moves, there was something very deep: emotion. The Tramp was poor, but he was never angry. He didn't have money, but he had hope. He was often in trouble, but he never gave up. People all over the world saw something of themselves in him. Charlie created the Tramp in 1914. At first, it was just for fun. But soon, this character became a symbol. He showed the pain of poor people, the cruelty of the world, and the strength of the human heart. Charlie's films like The Tramp, The Kid, and The Gold Rush became very popular. People laughed, cried, and fell in love with this small man on the screen. They didn't need words. They could feel every emotion through his face, his eyes, and his movements. In The Kid, Charlie played a poor man who finds a baby and raises him with love. The film was funny, but also full of tears. People were shocked. How could a comedy make them cry? Charlie had found the magic formula: make them laugh, then break their hearts. The Tramp walked into people's lives during a hard time. There was poverty, war, and sadness in many countries. But this little man gave people a reason to smile. He reminded them that kindness still matters. Charlie didn't use expensive sets or special effects. He used simple things: emotion, timing, and heart. And he controlled everything: the story, the acting, the direction, and sometimes even the music. Soon, he became more than just a movie star. He became a global icon. People in Europe, Asia, Africa, and America all knew the Tramp. Even children who had never seen a film before knew his walk and his hat. But Charlie was not just trying to entertain. He also wanted to say something important about life, about society, and about love. He once said, "I remain just one thing, and one thing only, a clown. It places me on a far higher plane than any politician." Charlie believed that laughter could change the world, and the Tramp became his voice. But as his fame grew, new challenges were waiting. More success, more pressure, and soon, the world of movies was about to change. Part 5. The Golden Years of Charlie Chaplin. During the 1920s and 1930s, Charlie Chaplin became one of the most powerful people in Hollywood. He was not just an actor. He was a writer, director, producer, and even a music composer. He had full control over his movies, and he used that control to make art that touched the world. In 1921, he made a film called The Kid. It was his first full-length movie. The story was about a poor man and a little boy living together like a family. It was funny, but also emotional. People cried in the cinema. For the first time, comedy was not just for laughs. It was also about love and pain. Then came the gold rush in 1925. Charlie played a man searching for gold in the cold mountains. There is a famous scene where he eats his own shoe. It was both sad and funny, a perfect example of Charlie's style. He once said, "This is the film I want to be remembered for." Next came City Lights in 1931, one of the greatest silent films in history. By this time, talking movies had already started, but Charlie stayed silent. Why? Because the Tramp didn't need words. His actions spoke louder than speech. City Lights tells the story of a poor man who falls in love with a blind flower girl. He tries to help her in any way he can. At the end of the movie, when she finally sees him, her eyes fill with tears, and so do ours. That final scene became one of the most powerful moments in film history. In 1936, Charlie made Modern Times, a movie about machines, factories, and the struggles of workers. It was full of comedy, but also a strong message. He was showing how modern life was becoming too fast, too cold, and too hard for the common man. The film had almost no dialogue, but it said more than many talking films. These movies made Charlie a legend. He was not just making films, he was telling the story of the world. Poor people, lonely people, dreamers, they all saw their lives in his characters. People everywhere loved him. In a world full of problems, Charlie gave them a reason to smile. He didn't use violence or hate. He used laughter, hope, and human kindness. These were the golden years of Charlie Chaplin. But soon, the world around him would change, and not everyone would continue to smile. Part 6. Trouble Behind the Smile. In the 1940s, the world was changing fast. War, politics, and fear were everywhere. Even Hollywood, the place of dreams, became a place of suspicion. And now, Charlie Chaplin, the man who made the world laugh, faced serious problems. In 1940, Charlie made a bold movie called The Great Dictator. It was his first full-talking film, and he played two characters. One was a poor barber, and the other was a cruel dictator. The movie was a strong message against Adolf Hitler and fascism. People were shocked. Charlie, the silent clown, was now speaking, and speaking loudly. At the end of the movie, he gave a powerful speech about peace, freedom, and love. Many people loved it, but others thought he was becoming too political. After World War II, America entered a new time of fear. It was the start of the Cold War. The government began searching for people they believed were dangerous, especially those with left-wing or socialist ideas. Charlie was not a communist, but he spoke about justice, equality, and peace. That made some people suspicious. The FBI started watching him. They said he was un-American. Newspapers attacked him. Politicians called him dangerous. And even though he gave so much joy to the world, many people now turned against him. In 1952, Charlie traveled to Europe for a movie project. But while he was away, the US government told him he couldn't return. They had canceled his visa. Imagine that. The man who helped build Hollywood was now not allowed back in the country. Charlie was deeply hurt. He had lived in America for more than 30 years. But now, he chose to stay in Europe. He moved to a quiet village in Switzerland with his wife and children. There, far from the noise of politics, he continued to write, think, and dream. But even in silence, his name lived on. People still watched his films, still laughed with the Tramp, still cried at city lights. Charlie once said, "In the end, everything is a gag." But behind that joke was a heart that had suffered, loved, and fought for what he believed in. His story was not over yet. In fact, something beautiful was waiting for him. One final gift from the world he had once lost. Part 7. The Final Bow and a Warm Goodbye. After being forced to leave the United States, Charlie Chaplin began a new chapter in Europe. He settled in a quiet village near Lake Geneva in Switzerland. Life there was peaceful. He lived in a large house with his wife, Una, and their children. He finally had time to rest, write, and enjoy family life. But Charlie never stopped creating. In 1957, he made a film called A King in New York. It was a clever and sharp story about politics and fame. The movie made fun of how some people lose their freedom just because they speak the truth. It was a reflection of Charlie's own pain and his courage. He also began writing his autobiography. In his book, he told the full story of his life, from the dark streets of London to the lights of Hollywood. He didn't complain. He simply shared his truth with calm and dignity. For many years, America stayed silent about Charlie. But slowly, people began to remember what he had given to the world. They remembered the joy, the laughter, and the humanity in his films. The new generation had never seen the Tramp on the big screen, but they still felt connected to him. Then something amazing happened. In 1972, after 20 years of exile, the Academy Awards invited Charlie back to America. He was now 82 years old. At first, he wasn't sure if he should go, but finally, he agreed. And so, after all those years, he returned, not as a man in trouble, but as a hero. When he walked onto the stage, the audience stood up. They clapped and cheered for 12 full minutes. It was one of the longest standing ovations in history. Charlie smiled quietly. Tears filled his eyes. He didn't say much, but his face said everything. That night, he received a special Oscar for his lifetime of work. The world had finally said, "Thank you." After that, Charlie lived quietly in Switzerland. He continued to enjoy music, reading, and time with his family. On Christmas Day, in 1977, Charlie passed away in his sleep. He was 88 years old. The little boy from London had become a global legend. Final words, more than a clown. Charlie Chaplin was not just a man who made people laugh. He was a mirror of human life. He showed us that even when the world is cruel, even when we are poor, lost, or alone, we can still smile. He came from nothing. He grew up hungry, scared, and forgotten. But he turned his pain into power. His silence spoke louder than 1,000 voices. His little Tramp became a giant in the world of film. Charlie taught us that true success is not about money or fame. It's about touching hearts. And he did that, again and again. Maybe that's why, even today, people still watch his films. They still laugh, still cry, still feel something real. That is the magic of Chaplin. He is not just a memory, he is a feeling. So, dear English learner, what can you learn from Charlie? Never give up on your dreams. Even when life is hard, use your voice or your silence to make a difference. Be kind, be bold, and never forget to smile through the tears. Because sometimes a simple smile can change the world. Thank you for joining this journey. If you enjoyed this story, let me know in the comments. Do you have a favorite Chaplin movie? Or maybe a moment that touched your heart? Like, comment, and subscribe for more inspiring stories, told in simple English, just for you. And remember, no matter where you come from, you have the power to write your own story.